My husband Vincent personally delivered me to a sanatorium specialized in disciplining disobedient wives. This was solely because I refused to consent to him marrying his brother's pregnant fiancée, Vivian, into the family under the pretext of concurrent inheritance. Selina, you should learn what it means to be obedient. This was the last sentence he spoke to me. Over the course of 90 days, they attempted to smooth my edges with branding irons. He brought Vivian to visit me. Vivian nestled in his arms, her abdomen swollen, her face full of smug satisfaction. I sat quietly, hands folded, eyes vacant. Vincent was very pleased with my current appearance. Selina, do you realize your mistake? I offered him a perfect smile. I realize my mistake, Vincent. My error was in not cutting the brake lines thoroughly enough when I orchestrated that car accident. I watched the color drain from his face. Even more so, in not ensuring you died alongside him. As my words landed, the air froze. The color drained from Vincent's face, replaced by rage. Selina, you're insane, he roared. He strode forward in one step, his hand viciously gripping my wrist. It hurt intensely. I did not struggle, merely maintaining my smile as I looked at him. Vivian let out a startled cry, like a frightened rabbit. She weakly hid behind Vincent. Vincent, don't do this. Sister, she's just ill. She's speaking nonsense. Don't scare the baby. She stroked her abdomen, each word adding fuel to the fire. He released me, the force causing me to stagger and collide with the cold wall. 2 orderlies rushed in. One on each side, they clamped my arms, forcibly separating me from Vincent. Mr. Vincent, the patient is emotionally unstable. Please leave first with Miss Vivian. The orderly's grip was strong, their arms constricting me painfully. Vincent straightened his slightly wrinkled suit, restoring his superior demeanor. He looked at me not as a wife, but with the gaze reserved for garbage. He turned to the sanatorium dean, who stood bowing submissively. Dean, it seems your discipline is far from sufficient. Each word was laced with ice. Intensify the efforts, regardless of the methods. I do not wish to hear another mad word from her mouth. She requires absolute silence and absolute obedience. Yes, yes, Mr. Vincent, rest assured. The dean nodded and bowed repeatedly, his face piled with obsequious smiles. We will certainly administer the most thorough discipline to Mrs. Fu, ensuring she learns what obedience means. Discipline, what an elegant term. I knew what that entailed: more frequent electric shocks, injections of drugs that left me dazed, and that wooden donkey covered in spikes. I was dragged by the orderlies, my feet tracing futile marks on the smooth floor. Vivian peeked from behind Vincent, casting a pitying glance. Her eyes betrayed unconcealed triumphant scheming. Sister, be obedient. Vincent is doing this for your own good. Once you're cured, we'll still be one family. Her voice was sweet and soft, like poison coated in honey. Vincent did not look at me again, he embraced Vivian's shoulders, gently soothing her. Don't be afraid, Vivian. The ramblings of a lunatic are not worth heeding. Let's go. The air here is poor, bad for you and the child. I'll listen to you, Vincent. They turned away, a picture of a talented man and beautiful woman, like a perfect pair. I was dragged through that heavy iron door leading to the isolation room. In the final moment, I mustered all my strength, my gaze crossing over Vincent's shoulder. It locked precisely onto Vivian's eyes. She was looking back at me with a hint of provocation. I made no sound, only mouthing the words, enunciating each one, Edward. I saw the color drain from Vivian's face in an instant, paler than Vincent's had been earlier. Her body swayed, nearly collapsing, but Vincent caught her. What's wrong, Vivian? Are you unwell? And nothing, Vincent. Perhaps I'm a bit tired. Her voice trembled. The iron door clanged shut before me. Darkness engulfed me. But I smiled. Vivian, the real show is about to begin. The isolation room had no light, only endless darkness and mildew. The orderlies roughly flung me to the ground, the cold concrete making me shiver. They injected me with a sedative. It was not for tranquility, but to blank my mind, facilitating the discipline. The drug took effect quickly, my limbs grew heavy, my consciousness floated. Memory surged under the drug's catalysis, uncontrolled. Scene after scene pierced my numb nerves like spikes. The first scene, our wedding anniversary. I spent the entire afternoon bustling in the kitchen, personally preparing Vincent's favorite dishes. I changed into his favorite red dress, lit candles on the dining table, and set out the decanted red wine. From dusk to midnight, the dishes on the table had gone completely cold. Calls went unanswered. Messages received no reply. After midnight passed, the phone screen finally lit up with a message, "Vivian is unwell, I won't be back tonight." Just 11 short words, with no further explanation or apology. I stared at the message, sitting at the cold dining table. Bite by bite, I ate all the cold dishes. The second scene, the Fu family banquet, with all relatives present. Vivian, as Vincent's brother's widow, was naturally there. Dressed in an elegant white skirt, she appeared pitiably delicate, earning everyone's sympathy. Midway through the banquet, she carried a glass of juice to me. "Sister, I noticed you haven't drunk anything. This mango juice was specially squeezed for you. It's very fresh, try it." She smiled innocently. Everyone in the Fu family knew I had a severe mango allergy that could cause anaphylactic shock. I looked at her without taking it. "What's wrong? Don't you like it? Or, are you still angry at me for taking up too much of Vincent's time?" As she spoke, her eyes reddened. Relatives immediately whispered. "Selina is too petty, Vivian is just a poor girl." Exactly, she means well, yet Selina gives her attitude. Vincent approached, taking the glass from Vivian's hand. He held it directly to my lips. "Drink it, Selina. Don't make a fuss, you're deliberately embarrassing Vivian." He spoke in a commanding tone, devoid of emotion. I looked at him, and at Vivian's smug face behind him. I opened my mouth and drank the mango juice. My throat burned immediately, followed by difficulty breathing. I clutched my neck, collapsing in pain. Before losing consciousness, I heard Vincent shouting at those nearby. "Call an ambulance." Damn it, how is she really allergic? He seemed shocked. Indeed, how could he believe that the white lotus he cherished would truly want my life? The third scene, the cat my mother left me, Snowball. It was my memento of my deceased mother. That day, Vivian came to the house to visit me. For some unknown reason, Snowball suddenly scratched her. It was a shallow red mark, not even breaking the skin. Yet Vivian was terrified, her face paling as she burst into tears on the spot. When Vincent returned, he saw Vivian crying while I held Snowball, at a loss. "Vincent, it's not sister's fault, it's mine. I shouldn't have gotten so close to the cat. I forgot it doesn't like me." She cried as if pear blossoms in rain. Vincent, without a word, snatched Snowball from my arms, preparing to hurl it from the upstairs. "Selina, have you caused enough trouble? To appease the frightened Vivian, this cat must die." "No. Vincent. That's what my mom left me." I frantically tried to grab it back. "It's just a beast, does it compare to the fright Vivian endured?" The recollections were interrupted by intense itching and suffocation. I awoke startled, my throat swelling again, breathing extremely difficult. Red rashes appeared on my skin, itching unbearably. I was having an allergic reaction. I looked at the dinner tray discarded on the ground. Was there mango in that porridge? They resorted to such despicable tactics. I curled up on the floor, my body convulsing from oxygen deprivation. In the darkness, I seemed to see Vincent's indifferent face again and hear Vivian's cloyingly sweet voice. Prolonged emotional neglect, endless belittlement. Now, physical torment wove into a vast net, trapping me. It turned out they had always wanted me dead. Previously with subtle knives, now with real ones. Very good, indeed very good. My throat and trachea tightened inch by inch, the suffocation growing stronger. I knew this was my opportunity, my only one. Before consciousness was fully engulfed, I used my last strength. I reached for the sharp porcelain shard hidden in the seam of my pant leg. It was secretly stashed when I shattered the rice bowl. I had prepared for this day for too long. Without hesitation, I slashed deeply across my wrist. Warm liquid surged out instantly, spreading on the cold ground. I lay in a pool of blood, feeling life ebb with the blood loss. I forced myself to stay conscious, calculating time. About 5 minutes later, the isolation room door opened. It was the orderly on routine check. The blinding flashlight beam hit my face, followed by a terrified scream. "Help! The patient has committed suicide." The entire sanatorium erupted in chaos instantly. I was hastily lifted onto a stretcher and wheeled out of hell amid noisy voices and hurried footsteps. "Quick! To the affiliated hospital. The patient has excessive blood loss and severe allergic reaction, any delay will be too late." The dean's voice was filled with panic. He feared that if I died there, Vincent would hold him accountable. I kept my eyes closed, allowing them to rush me along. During the transfer from the sanatorium to the ambulance, there was a surveillance blind spot about 10 meters long. As the stretcher passed through it, the young nurse pushing me accidentally tripped. The stretcher tilted, and the white sheet covering me slipped halfway off. Sorry. She apologized hastily, fumbling to readjust the sheet. In the instant she bent down, she swiftly slipped a cold object into my palm. At the same time, she whispered in a voice only we could hear. "Miss Selina, Mr. Adrian is waiting for you in the morgue. Safe journey." After speaking, she straightened up, recovered the sheet, and continued pushing me forward. Everything happened in a flash. No one noticed. I clenched the object in my hand, a small scalpel blade. I had once sponsored a group of impoverished medical students, this nurse was one of them. I remembered her, her name was Lillian. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was rushed directly into the emergency room. "Patient in anaphylactic shock with excessive blood loss, heartbeat has stopped. Prepare the defibrillator. 1 dose of epinephrine, quick." I listened to the tense dialogue of doctors and nurses around me, my heart utterly calm. Half an hour later, the attending physician pulled down his mask and announced my death. "Resuscitation failed, notify the family." I was covered with a white sheet, wheeled out of the emergency room, and sent to the hospital's underground morgue. The morgue's air conditioning was set high. The air was permeated with the smell of formalin. After confirming no one was around, I threw off the white sheet and sat up. A man in a black trench coat stood with his back to me in front of a row of refrigeration cabinets. His tall, straight figure exuded an aura of unapproachable oppression even from behind. "Adrian." I spoke, my voice hoarse from hypoxia and weakness. The man turned around. He had a handsome face with an intensely aggressive quality. His features were profound, his gaze sharp like an eagle's. He was Adrian, the president of the Yen Group, the Fu family's longtime business rival. "It seems you succeeded." Adrian appraised me, from my pale face to the bleeding wound on my wrist. "Did you bring the deposit?" I asked. He lifted his chin, indicating the metal briefcase nearby. I got off the bed, bare feet stepping on the cold ground. I walked to him and began reciting. Fu Group, in the third quarter of XXXX, falsely reported overseas project costs of 37 million to evade taxes. The handler was the finance director. The original accounts are hidden in his mistress's apartment in the east of the city, specific address is. In XXXX, during the Fu Group's bid for the southern city plot, through Vincent's father, they bribed the then planning bureau chief with 5 million in cash and a valuable set of antiques. The transaction occurred at a private club in the suburbs, the audio evidence is at. In one breath, I recounted all the illicit account details from the Fu Group's early rise that I had memorized. These were what I had inadvertently seen in encrypted files in his study after marrying Vincent. Adrian's expression shifted from initial calm to surprise, and finally to solemnity. After listening, he paused in silence. Enough, this is sufficient to give the Fu family a hard time. He pushed the metal briefcase toward me. Open it and see. I opened the case. Inside was a set of new identity documents, a passport, and an anonymous Swiss bank card. Deal concluded. I closed the case. Adrian, you are responsible for fabricating the illusion of my failed resuscitation death, providing me with a new identity and all resources needed for revenge. In return, upon success, all of the Fu Group's core assets will be yours. Adrian looked at me, his gaze showing inquiry for the first time. Is it worth it? Turning yourself into a dead person for revenge. Dead person? I laughed. The laughter echoed in the empty morgue, somewhat eerie. I died long ago. From the day I was sent to the sanatorium, Selina was already dead. What lives now is merely an avenger crawled back from hell. The day after my death, Vincent received a call from the sanatorium dean. On the other end, Dean tearfully reported the entire process of my suicide, repeatedly emphasizing that the hospital had done its utmost in resuscitation. Through the listening device installed by Adrian, I heard Vincent's reaction on the other end. He was silent for so long that I thought the signal had been interrupted. Then, I heard him speak. His voice carried an emptiness he himself could not comprehend. Dead? Yes, Mr. Vincent, sorry, it was our negligence in supervision. Understood, cremate the body, keep the arrangements simple. His voice returned to its habitual irritability and impatience, as if disposing of troublesome garbage. In that instant, the last remnant in my heart, the illusions of the past, shattered completely. I felt no sorrow. Not even anger. Less than an hour after Vincent hung up, Adrian delivered my first gift. The Fu Group headquarters was jointly raided by tax authorities and economic investigation police. Vincent's father, the chairman of the Fu Group, was taken away on the spot under the gaze of all employees. The reason was suspected of multiple serious tax issues and commercial bribery, requiring assistance in investigation. The Fu family's world had collapsed. But this was not enough. Almost simultaneously, my maternal family's Sioux enterprise received unilateral notice from the Fu Group. All ongoing cooperative projects were terminated. All unsettled payments were frozen indefinitely. The Fu Group was Sioux's largest client and pillar. This move cut off the foundation, directly severing Sioux's capital chain. Within a day, Sioux's stock price plummeted, on the brink of bankruptcy. I sat in the safe house prepared by Adrian, watching the rolling news on TV, sipping hot tea expressionlessly. Adrian sat opposite me. Selina, you're more ruthless than I imagined, you're sacrificing your own family. No destruction, no construction. I set down the teacup. A family that depends on the Fu family and can't even protect its daughter, what use is keeping it? What I want is a brand new Sioux family that belongs solely to me. Adrian said no more, only handing me a delivery box. What is this? What you asked me to prepare. I opened the box. Inside was a music box, my mother's bequest. The ballerina girl on top was my most precious childhood memory. Now, it had been smashed to pieces. Wood chips and parts scattered everywhere, the ballerina girl's head rolled to the side. I picked up the tiny head, caressing it. This had been my only spiritual sustenance from the past. Now, I had destroyed it myself. There was also a note in the box, written by me. I repacked the note and music box fragments. Send it to him, I said to Adrian. That night, Vincent received the anonymous package. Through the surveillance in his home, I watched him open the box. I saw him staring at the fragments, his body stiffening. He perhaps recalled that this music box was my only demand when I agreed to marry him. It must be brought into the Fu family as my dowry. He reached out, picking up the note from the fragments. In my handwriting, it read 2 lines, the first offering. Vincent, you taught me to uproot the grass completely, I start from my own roots. In the surveillance footage, Vincent held the note, his body trembling uncontrollably. The irritability and impatience on his face vanished, replaced by a spreading bone-chilling dread and fear. He suddenly rushed to the phone, dialing the dean's number. "Selina. Where is Selina's body? I want to see her." He roared into the phone. "Mr. Vincent, it has already been cremated as per your instructions." "Cremated?" Vincent's voice was like a beast's roar squeezed from his throat. "I ask you, did you see clearly? Are you sure it was her who died?" His entire body went cold. He finally understood that I was not dead. I had merely used the most tragic and resolute method, sacrificing everything of myself, to initiate an unending revenge against him and the entire Fu family. He had lost the first round. And this was merely the beginning. The Fu family was in utter chaos. The chairman was under investigation, the company's stock price plummeted. Vincent was overwhelmed, seeking help everywhere but meeting obstacles at every turn. At this juncture, Adrian's second major gift for me exploded across the internet. A 10,000-word article signed by former Fu family doctor spread virally on major social platforms. The title was sensational: Tycoon's Cage, the Concurrent Inheritance and Discipline I Witnessed. The article, in first person, detailed how an eldest daughter-in-law from a scholarly family, due to her kindness and innocence, inadvertently discovered her husband's family secrets. And because she opposed her husband marrying his deceased brother's pregnant lover into the family via concurrent inheritance, she was forcibly diagnosed with hereditary mental illness and sent to a private sanatorium. The article referred to the female protagonist as Ms. S. The writing was filled with sympathy and compassion, portraying me as a perfect, innocent victim. But what truly ignited public opinion were the accompanying images. The first image, an interior photo of the sanatorium, with discipline hung on the wall. Below were oddly shaped objects resembling ancient torture devices. The photo was eerie and horrifying, sending chills down one's spine. The second image, a medical record mosaicked heavily. The name Ms. S was clearly visible. The diagnosis was severe depression with schizophrenic tendencies. The physical examination records noted multiple unexplained burn scars, genital lacerations, and subcutaneous bruising on the patient. The third part, the article's most heart-wrenching content. The author used extremely subtle phrasing to raise several doubts. First, Vincent's brother's car accident was ruled an accident by police, but why did Vincent deliberately conceal many details of the crash? Second, if carefully calculated, the gestational age of Vivian's fetus seemed to have some subtle discrepancies. Third, why, after the Fu incident and Ms. S's death, could Vivian, as the widow, immediately transfer all assets related to the Fu family under her name, as if prepared in advance? At the end, the author left an open conclusion. I do not know if Ms. S is dead or alive now. I only hope the truth will one day be revealed to the world. I also hope that certain demons in human skin receive their due judgment. This article was like a nuclear bomb in public opinion, exploding instantly. Holy crap! Are tycoons this dark? Sending the original wife for discipline with branding irons? What the hell is that wooden donkey? So perverted. Is this the 21st century? Heartaches for Ms. S. Isn't this a real-life version of the vanished lover? Wait, the child's gestational age doesn't match? Terrifying to think about. Was the big brother cuckolded? Vincent and Vivian, this adulterous pair. Get out here. Public opinion completely reversed. Netizens who previously sympathized with Vivian's loss of love now erupted in anger like a volcano. The Fu Group's official account and Vincent's personal social media were instantly flooded with furious comments. The Fu Group's already precarious stock price plummeted again in response, hitting the limit down. I sat before the screen, watching all this. Vincent, you nailed me to the pillar of shame as a madwoman. Now, I nail you to the pillar of shame as an abuser. Leaving you unable to turn over forever. You like public opinion, I'll use it to bury you and your beloved Fu family together. Vincent was drowned in the flood of public opinion. Overwhelmed, he dealt with tax investigations on one side, the stock price avalanche on the other, and now faced condemnation across the web. Through surveillance, I watched him furiously smashing everything smashable in his office. This was the first time I saw him so out of control. Late at night, reeking of alcohol, he rushed into the top private hospital where Vivian was. Vivian lay in bed, enjoying meticulous care from attendants. "Vincent, why are you here? Have you been drinking?" She tried to sit up. Vincent pressed her down. "Vivian, what's with those things online? Who leaked it? I warned you, that matter from back then must stay buried." His voice was hoarse, filled with unprecedented suspicion. Vivian's body stiffened momentarily. "Vincent, why ask this suddenly? Didn't we agree not to mention that matter anymore?" I'm scared." Her eyes reddened. She was about to start her best performance. "Ah. My belly, it hurts so much. Vincent, save me." She began rolling on the bed, her expression in extreme agony. Doctors and nurses rushed in immediately. "Mr. Vincent, the patient is emotionally agitated, showing signs of premature labor. Please leave first." Vincent was pushed out of the ward. He leaned against the hospital's white corridor wall, his face full of exhaustion and struggle. Vivian's old trick still worked. In the end, he chose to believe her. He took out his phone, through the ward glass, snapping a photo of Vivian lying in bed, looking haggard. Then, he logged into his social account, already cursed millions of times, and posted, "No matter how many rumors outside, I only beg everyone to spare an innocent pregnant woman, don't hurt her anymore. All responsibility, I bear alone." He attempted to shift focus by playing the victim, using Vivian and the child to garner sympathy. How laughable. He thought he was still the Vincent who controlled everything. He didn't know that every step was within Adrian's calculations. Less than 10 minutes after posting, Adrian's PR team entered the fray. Countless marketing accounts and online influencers began reposting with unified copy. Classic PUA tactic, the abuser tries to use a weaker victim as a shield. Guilty? Starting to use the pregnant woman as a bullet shield? Translation: curse me all you want, just don't hinder me using the child to inherit the family fortune. Am I the only one who thinks that the more he protects Vivian like this, the more it proves the online revelations are true? Public opinion not only didn't subside but provoked fiercer disgust and mockery. The term using pregnant woman as shield surged to the top of hot searches. Vincent's behavior was interpreted as guilty, hypocritical, and utterly irresponsible. I watched in the surveillance as Vincent stared fixedly at his phone, his face turning from ashen to pale. Finally, he smashed the phone against the wall. The screen shattered into pieces, just like the irreparable crack that had formed between him and Vivian. "Very good. Vincent, continue your performance. The more you struggle, the more outrageously wrong you become. I will watch you step by step into the inescapable net I have set for you. The company on the verge of bankruptcy, reputation in tatters. Even the last PR attempt became a joke." Exhausted Vincent returned alone late at night to our former marital home. Perhaps he sought a moment's respite there. He opened the door. What greeted him was not familiar warmth, but an empty vastness with echoing sounds. All furniture in the house, the curtains I carefully selected, the only photo of us on the wall, the Persian rug on the floor. Everything was gone. The entire house had been emptied into a shell. Pale moonlight streamed through the curtainless floor-to-ceiling windows, stretching his shadow long. He stood in the center of the empty living room, his face utterly bewildered and stunned. He took out his phone, dialing his lawyer. "Where is our furniture? Stolen? Call the police immediately." The lawyer paused on the other end. "Mr. Vincent, that property is no longer under your name." "What do you mean? Have you forgotten? A year ago, you signed an agreement. Miss Selina used half of her dowry under her name to inject life-saving funds into the then cash-strapped Fu Group. In exchange, the ownership of that marital home was completely and independently transferred to her personal name from then on." The lawyer's voice was calm. "All items in the house are Miss Selina's private property. The moving company she commissioned cleared and transported everything 3 days ago. All procedures were legal and compliant. Vincent held the phone, silent for a long time. He perhaps only then recalled such a matter. At the time, he thought me foolish, exchanging real money for a house he could buy 10 more of any time. He had even mocked me. Now, standing in this empty room, he was like a joke. He began wandering in this shell, like a lost soul. He passed the kitchen, perhaps recalling my figure cooking for him. He passed the study, perhaps remembering the late nights I organized files for him. He passed the bedroom, perhaps thinking of the countless nights I waited for him here. Those contributions he never cared about, taken for granted. In this moment, through their absence, became strikingly clear. For the first time, he so clearly recalled everything I had done for him, from staunch support in career to meticulous care in life. It turned out that this woman he personally pushed away was the foundation of his entire life and career. Finally, in a corner of the master bedroom, he found an overlooked small note. He squatted down and picked it up. It was my handwriting, elegant yet with a touch of resoluteness. It bore only one sentence: "The home is gone, are you satisfied now?" Through the camera hidden in the smoke alarm, I watched Vincent. He looked at the note, his shoulders beginning to shake violently. Then, this man who had never shed a tear before outsiders, this man who sent me to hell, like a child, squatted in the corner of the empty room, emitting suppressed, breaking sobs. He covered his face, curling up in pain. "You think you lost only a disobedient wife? No, what you lost is the entire world you once possessed." Vincent's pursuits and pleas were, to me, merely an irrelevant farce. My revenge had reached its final step. Through Adrian, I submitted to the police the final, most lethal evidence. It was a file from Cloud Backup. The source was the dashcam I had installed in the car I gave to Vincent's brother Edward that year. When I gave him the car, I kept a precaution, setting the dashcam data to autosync to my private email. This video recorded everything before the accident. The video footage was clear. Inside the car, Edward was driving, Vivian in the passenger seat. They were arguing intensely. "Vivian, Edward, what do you mean? I must give birth to this child." Edward, "Give birth? Vivian, do you take me for a fool? I had a checkup last month. I have severe oligospermia. The doctor said my natural conception probability is almost 0. Whose bastard is in your belly? Vivian, you're talking nonsense. This child is yours. Edward, even now you're stubborn. I've already checked. Last month you booked a hotel room with your ex-boyfriend. You even have an ambiguous relationship with my brother. Do you think I know nothing?" Vivian's face turned deathly pale instantly. You investigated me? Not just investigated. I'm canceling the engagement with you. You disgusting woman, dream on entering the Fu family door. Edward roared, starting to dial. Hey, Dad, I want to cancel the wedding with Vivian, this woman she. Seeing this, Vivian went completely mad. She lunged, grabbing Edward's steering wheel. No. You can't say it. Edward, if you ruin me, I'll take you down with me. The vehicle instantly lost control, crashing into the roadside barrier and rolling over. The video went black here, but the audio continued. After the accident, Vincent was the first to arrive at the scene in the recording. In the background, Edward's dying gasps. Vincent. Vincent, you're here. Bro. Hold on. Ambulance is coming soon. It was Vincent's voice. It's no use. I know my own body. Vincent, listen to me, it's Vivian, the child in her belly, isn't mine. She grabbed the wheel, causing the accident. Bro. Vincent, promise me, don't let this bitch and her bastard enter the Fu family door, avenge me. Edward's voice grew weaker. Finally, it vanished completely. A long silence. Then, Vincent's voice. To his father on the phone, the Fu chairman, he said quietly, Dad, big brother is gone. Before dying, he asked me to take good care of sister-in-law. The child in Vivian's belly can't be fatherless. I think I'll undertake concurrent inheritance and marry her. The truth was revealed. This recording not only proved Vivian was the direct culprit of the accident but also exposed Vincent concealing his brother's dying truth to be with Vivian. After police obtained the evidence, they acted immediately. Vivian was arrested on the spot in the hospital for suspected intentional injury causing death. Vincent was arrested by law for harboring, perjury, and multiple crimes combined. The Fu family, this once invincible business empire, completely collapsed in one day. All sins were exposed under the sun. All sinners received their due judgment. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the distant city lights. It was over. This revenge spanning life and death finally concluded. 2 years later, after prolonged bankruptcy liquidation, the Fu Group was jointly acquired by 2 companies. One was the Yen Group. The other, a newly established, aggressively rising investment firm named Selina Capital. On the cover of the finance magazine was me. Selina, returning strongly as the founder of Selina Capital. In the photo, I wore a sharp white suit, confident and composed. I not only rebuilt the Su family's business empire but, with Adrian's help, developed it to unprecedented heights. Meanwhile, Vincent was released early from prison for good behavior. Upon release, he had nothing. All Fu family assets were confiscated. Penniless, he had no place to live. I heard his mental state was unstable, fluctuating. He disturbed no one, just day after day went to the cenotaph erected for me. Wiping that cold, photoless tombstone all day long, like the most devout believer guarding an empty grave. I saw him again at an international business forum in Switzerland. I was one of the keynote speakers. He mingled in the peripheral crowd at the venue, ragged and emaciated, clashing with the elegant atmosphere. Across the distant crowd, he gazed obsessively at me on stage. I finished my speech and stepped off the stage. Adrian beside me naturally took my microphone, handing me a cup of water. We exchanged smiles. My gaze calmly swept the room, acknowledging all guests. My line of sight passed over Vincent's direction without lingering, not even for a second. Like glancing over an irrelevant background panel, a blurry pixel. To him, I was the ineradicable, heart-gouging pain of his latter life. To me, he was merely a nameless, erased past in my brilliant life. No love, nor hate. This was the cruelest eternal judgment upon him.